you're already whole, complete, and perfect. And when you start there, then you're on fire in the sense of creating from a place of want, a place of desire, not lack or feeling a hole needs to be filled. Don't get me wrong, you're going to go through the whole gamut of emotions, but you start off in a base of what is now believing that you're already whole, complete, and perfect. That means you're enough. And having that belief, you can go out and do anything. And you'll mess up. And part of it, of the success, is big failures for sure, and small failures, but you learn. Ask any hyper successful person that. When people are in that state, they relax their mind and their body and they're open to trust and accept a new suggestion uncritically. So if I said to somebody, you're going to dance, and somebody's like, no way, because they've got their guard up, as soon as they let that guard down and they relax, they're in a state of hypnosis. And when I say, when you hear the next piece of music, you have this uncontrollable urge and desire to dance. You're an amazing dancer and you are going to be safe and you're going to be on the stage dancing as if you're an amazing dancer. And so they open their eyes. I'm like, are you going to dance up here? No, 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 no. They hear the music and in an instant they stand up and they are the greatest, or they're acting as if they're the greatest. I'm not saying that they are. And they start doing their thing. What's the difference? What got them to activate themselves into that state?
Welcome to the podcast that guides men to demystify and develop their intuition. I'm your host, Doug Bites. Let's dig into the science and expand your horizons. Our guest today, Wayne Lee, is one of North America's premier corporate presenters, entertainers, and peak performance experts. For over 25 years, Wayne has helped people from more than 6,000 organizations unlock the subconscious mindset that allows them to perform at their best, no matter what the challenges they face. A 5-time national wrestling champion turned mindset coach, Wayne is also the creator of the Transform process, a system that helps individuals and teams reconnect with what matters most so they can thrive under pressure and truly enjoy the ride of their lives. Today, we'll explore the connection between mindset, hypnosis, and intuition, how turning into our inner signals can unlock peak performance and purpose. Wayne, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Doug. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And something I was just reading in there in your bio just sparked off another question in my mind. And I'm trying to see where it is there. I'll get back to it in a sec. But I'm just curious, what has motivated you to help people like improve their lives? And you've spent a big chunk of your life helping other people. What's the motivation there?
When you ask that question, immediately I go back to my childhood and I look at, hmm, what was present there that allowed me to do what I'm doing now? And I think there was always that sense of a creative imagination. I was fascinated with the power of play, the power of imagination, and so that was always been present, and that led me to I think being kind of a natural born entertainer, being the comedian, being the fellow that told jokes, also the people pleaser, like around people, always wanting to make sure people felt great. And now, going through that intuitive process of like, hey, this isn't scripted right now. We didn't have this pre-planned. I can see how I remember even going through early childhood, my parents divorcing like around grade 5, how when there was tension, there was stress, I was always that person that was the peacemaker, or the person, the pleaser. And so I think that was always present to entertain, to make people feel good. And that was always a driving force for me. Now looking at becoming an entertainer and then wanting to teach and then putting it all together and along the road, picking up various skill sets, as well as being absolutely fascinated with hypnosis and magic. And those were all part of the mix to where I'm at now, to what I call to entertain, educate, and empower people.
Mm. So I was very curious whether there was any childhood thing, and I'll use the word pain because my
Yeah.
my mum left my dad. Like my mum and dad were together, like when he passed away a couple of years ago. Mum's 94 now, like, they were married for over, 70 years. But she left him at least a dozen times from when I was the youngest, as from when I was 5 was the first time. And we would go for anywhere from 2 weeks to maybe 4 months before she would reconcile and come home. Oh, actually, one time he came back to where we were, but yeah, so there was, and I've same sort of thing or similar, childhood stuff that sticks with you. And it's quite interesting. I was running a class yesterday and I was talking about something, and a couple of the ladies rolled their eyes because I was using an example to get my point across of me doing something silly to exaggerate the situation to teach them not to do that. And the women are sort of rolling their eyes, looking at me, and there was only one man in the room. And I looked at him and I said, like, am I not doing the right thing? Am I not a little boy in a man's body? Is that not who, it's, and, I haven't said that for quite a while. It's not a standard thing in my presentations. But yesterday it came out and I started to think about it through the night last night. And I thought, us men anyway, I don't know about the ladies, but us men are little boys in big bodies. And we go back to those things that happened when we were younger and when we had small bodies that caused us pain or anguish, or we just had that resolve to not let that happen in our lives, etc. So I was curious what where it stemmed from with you.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's definitely that pain point. And I think that I can look at it in a number of different ways, both with great gratitude that it's been one of the gifts that have allowed me to grow and expand and being aware of the things that trigger me. And also, as my good friend Jeremy Podlog, a friend that I grew up with that I wrestled with, he says, good quality, bad quality, in the sense that whatever's a really, good quality can also be a trigger. It can also be a downfall of what you may be hiding or what you may be masking. And in my case, maybe it was speaking my truth, like being really upfront and direct instead of making people feel good all the time. And so I think a big part of it now coming full circle is, I teach what I need to learn most. And man, I am truly blessed that child that was 10, 12, 7, I got to follow my heart and I'm still living that. And I can honestly say is that, I'm doing something I absolutely love. And I think that's one of the greatest things I can do for others is giving people permission for them to do what they love. Or because I think in my journey, I've met a lot of people that are very unhappy or dissatisfied with having to do a certain thing because they know they think they have to or they should do it.
Mm, okay. And you mentioned there before about wrestling, and I'm curious, what age were you 5 times champion? Like, was teenage
Yeah.
or adult or?
I give you just the real quick backstory is grade 7, I had somebody that was a phys ed teacher on Vancouver Island, and he said to me, Wayne, you're going to wrestle. It wasn't like, Wayne, do you want to wrestle? He would say that with everybody. So he'd pull you into the wrestling room. And for the first year, I got beat up. I got really beat up. And I don't know why I even stayed, but it was probably because of him. Um, but sticking with it long enough, there was an amazing group of wrestlers in that room that pushed me, that inspired me to the point where next year I was actually winning and I was like hooked. And I think also it helped that I was in a small weight class, so there wasn't that much competition. And that boosted me to really love the sport. And then when I moved to where I'm living now, there was an amazing coach, wrestling club, where in that environment, I learned so many things about what I talk about today in terms of mental preparation, toughness, the subconscious mind. And I realized all those things that I was doing back then really is hypnosis. It's just called something different. It's just not called hypnosis. And so that was my deep fascination is looking at the parallel. And it was around that grade 9, grade 10, I started to win those national championships. But the turning point was like in grade 10, actually. I came second at the nationals, and it was a big goal for me. Yet it was a very, very big lesson for me because when my coach asked, like, how well do you want to do? I said, I want to do really well this year. And he goes, no, specifically how well you want to do. And that was a real lesson in goal setting and getting real specific about what you want. And he said, do all these physical things, but I really want you to do one thing every day if you promise me that. And I said, what's that? He says, I want you to visualize as if you've achieved that result. So I did it so well, in fact, of getting into the finals that when I wrestled in the final match, the gold medal match, I'd beaten the guy at a previous tournament, but I lost that match. And I was stunned. I was actually disappointed. Don't get me wrong, I did really well, but I knew I could have won that. And Glenn, my coach, looked at me and he says, well, you know what you did, right? And I says, well, I don't know. You're the coach. Tell me what I did wrong. He says, you didn't do anything wrong, Wayne, but what did you focus upon all year long? And it hit me like a brick. And I was like, I focused in on making it into the finals, but I didn't even visualize about winning.
Guys, if you're on a path of developing your intuition, and I know you are, that's why you're listening here, then the Neurovisor is a tool worth checking out. It uses light and sound to guide your brain into deeper states of awareness, helping you quiet the noise, tap into your inner knowing, and strengthen your intuitive muscle. And who doesn't want that? There's no pills, no fluff, just 11 minutes a day to reset your mind and reconnect with your instincts. I've bought myself one last Christmas and I've added it to my daily practice, and the shifts are real. This is not a paid ad, but if you use the link in the show notes for more information, I do receive a small percentage of the purchase price. I highly recommend you check it out. Yep.
And so for the next 3 years, 4 years going into university, my goal was adamantly to win the national championships. And that's what I did. And
Yeah.
a big part of it was that shift in mindset.
Yeah, I've had an elite peak performance coach on the podcast in the past. He's down in Florida and he has over 80 students, and most of them are teenagers with, I'm assuming, wealthy parents who want them to be elite Olympic athletes. And they
Hmm.
vary between golf and tennis and just three or four sports, but more than half of them are golfers. And he said exactly that. He's had one student who set a goal to, win whatever. The other student set the goal to be able to play the ultimate, at the end of the year that you would get invited to play this golf tournament. And so she got it. So she made it and she did really well right up to that. And then when she played that round of golf, she came last. Like she was absolutely a basket case and exhausted because
Yeah.
like
She'd already
she'd
achieved
already
what she
reached
wanted.
her goal, and there was, once she was in the event, there was no goal. Like, it was just to be able to play. Then she got what she asked for, but
Yeah,
yeah, you got to be
no
very
more.
careful what you ask for. Yeah,
Without a doubt. And I mean, that carried on through the rest of my wrestling career and also life. And I also realized that, we can produce big goals and that's great. And those achievements are great. And what's even greater are the adversities that teach us learning lessons and open up doors to new possibilities that we didn't even realize we had within us to overcome and achieve what's next.
yeah. So I'm curious, when you're like, I remember going to Friday night youth group, when I was 13 or something, and I've never been like a fighter or anything like that, and there was a couple of boys, and of course, I was always the youngest one, and their testosterone had kicked off a little bit earlier than mine, and they liked wrestling. So before it would start, like at 7 o'clock on a Friday night, we'd get there at 6:30, and we'd all be out in the grass, whether you wanted to or not, rolling around wrestling, trying to pin the other guy's shoulders onto the grass for 5 seconds or whatever it was. And yeah, I was like, these guys, to me, they were just annoying that they always wanted to do it. And I would join in, but yeah, you'd get pinned or you whatever. So I'm curious, when you were sort of doing, like all those years, did you ever have any intuitive moments come through, like to get yourself like? And I'm assuming it would occur when you were pinned or in a situation you didn't want to be in, like, or was it always a technical thing to try and get you out of the hold and reverse the action?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think intuitively, when I was on the mat, there were certain things that I just knew that I needed to get off the back, not no matter how, and there was this intuition of doing it. Countering that, though, I would say that my intuition sure grew when I practiced a whole lot.
Right. Yeah. You're able to
So I'm a
kick
big
into the,
believer because my experience is that reps, stage time, however you want to translate that to whoever's listening right now, the more that you ingrain it in your subconscious, it becomes muscle memory. It becomes not thinking, more it is ingrained as a response that is immediate. And if you look at the greatest wrestlers, and I go back to my sport, is they've done it hundreds of thousands of times to get to the point to make it look so intuitive and so easy.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
part of that I think is the motion of life of doing something over and over produces a sense of knowingness.
Yeah. Yeah, I know probably 18 months ago I had my first swimming lesson and just to overcome a fear and I'm not doing too bad with it. And I go to the local pool. It's a 30-minute drive away and I swim 3 days a week. But recently I bought myself this because it's summer here in Australia. So, and we've got a 8 meter swimming pool, so about 25 feet long. And so I bought one of these bungee cord, you put a little strap around your waist with a bungee cord and you secure it in the lawn beside the pool and you start swimming, but you don't go anywhere. So I've used that half a dozen times recently, and it's very different to swimming in the pool doing laps and knowing how far you're getting or what you're doing. And I've been going that long and that hard with it just because you're not going anywhere. So I don't know how fast I'm going, but I'm just practicing the stroke and I'm putting in the reps and I think I'm putting in a lot more reps than I normally do. Um, and yesterday I went back to the pool, the lap swimming pool, and it was so much easier. I did
Mm.
20% more than I normally do, and I wasn't the slightest bit puffed. And I thought I could actually do double that quite easy. But normally when I'm there, my mindset tells me I've done my 20 laps, it's over. And yesterday I did 24 laps and it was like, this is easy. Like I could just keep going all day. And I think it's because I've been putting the reps in, but I haven't had the mind thing of, oh, I've already done what I've set out to do, just stop. Like I've
Yeah.
been getting out of the pool feeling like I'm drunk with this strap on. Like I'm
Yeah.
not lightheaded, but I guess that's the best analogy you could give. I feel fine and I sit and rest of it. So I'm really doing it. I'm doing a lot with this bungee thing. So I'm putting in a lot more reps than normal I think physically, and it's doing something. And yeah, for the next minute or two, I've got to be careful. Lucky there's grass there. I haven't fallen over yet, but I know a couple of times if anyone was watching me, I would look like I'd had half a dozen beers because
Great.
I'm really putting those reps in, and then you
Yeah.
go back, yeah, and it makes a big difference. Yeah, yeah,
Right. It carries over to then what you do in the pool in
yeah,
the sense because you put so many reps in.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, Now, yesterday I was watching one of your YouTube videos, and it talked about the mega method. And
Yeah.
when I was watching it, I was on the rider mower or listening to it, and so
Yeah.
I got it to a certain point, and I just stopped it because it seemed like it was probably going to go into a meditative state or something, I assumed, and I just never got back to listen. So I didn't continue it. Like I listened to the introduction to the whole thing for 6 or 7 minutes. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you want to talk about that or explain what that is.
For sure. So the MEGA method is it's an acronym, first of all, that represents the mental endgame activation method. So mental means, what you're first starting with in your mind. End game is what's the end outcome that you want to achieve. So like with me in wrestling, getting into the finals was my end game, and sure enough, I ended up getting there and no more. So the end game is not just knowing that it is there. So the question is very simple, is what specifically do you want? And once somebody names that, say for instance, in all areas of their life, it's a very powerful question because once somebody has decided what they want, they name it. And even more so, if people write it down, they've created this subconscious awareness and physical process of putting it on paper. And that's the first element of like starting to get what you want. A lot of people, and I've heard statistics anywhere from 90, 95%, not sure what it is. I just know that in my experience, there's a lot of people that don't ever do that. Or they do it at certain time in their life and they kind of forget about it or they just go on with living. So even the mere fact of somebody deciding what they want, writing it down is a big success. Where people fall short a lot of times is that they know what they want, they even see it, but the real, um, I would say, acceleration point is to get to a place where you feel as though you've already done it.
Mm.
And after interviewing Olympic gold medalists, not just Olympians, but Olympic gold medalists, numerous Olympic gold medalists, in my own experience, and then researching just all the peak performers, in some form or another, they've done some form of routine and rehearsal where they've seen and felt themselves as if they've already achieved it numerous times. So that's the essence of the mental endgame activation method. Now, one of the things that I'll add to is how do you activate that feeling within you that continually gets you to align yourself to who you are, what the goals are, and having a deep belief that you're going to get it? Well, once you visualized it and you feel that feeling that you've already achieved it, you're doing it through your imagination. And everything first starts in the mind as an idea, a thought. So once that feeling comes up, it's one of the greatest signals, one of the greatest indicators that you are emitting this energy of creation, that you are performing as if you're in the peak state that you need to be in. So wouldn't it be wonderful to get into that peak state anytime you could, so then you propel yourself forward? And I know when I'm in my presentations or sessions or even giving the people that exercise at the end, I'll ask the question, when you feel good, don't you perform better? And the answer is simply yes, yes. Well, why don't people feel better? Well, one, they're delaying success. They're like, I need to, you know, get here before I'm at this level, or I need to have more money, or I need to have more time. And so it's all these barriers that they stop themselves from being that feeling, that sense of they're already in the moment. So I'm really big on getting them into that peak state right there, right then. But then how do you activate it? How do you just trigger it? And through the years, what I've realized and tested out on stage is when you can give somebody a very simple signal or trigger where they can activate it and they start doing it, they'll start to perform better. They'll start to feel better. They'll start to follow through so they form better goals. And so with the mental end game activation process, it's name what they want, they claim what they want, feel as though they've already achieved it, and then they anchor it to either a color, a word, a movement, like touching the hand of their heart, or a combination of those three. And then once that's ingrained for the next 30 days, for them to bring it back by activating with those specific mind triggers, either a word like yes, or a fist pump, or a hand to the heart. And for many years, what I've used on stage is a color. And it's very interesting. I'll say, there's a color to that feeling when their eyes are closed once they feel like they've already achieved their goal. And a lot of times people will say, that color, I don't even like that color, but it just came to me. So there's a sense of it's perfect in what you need. And if you study the chakras and the energy, and if you don't go too much into it, but you just kind of have a baseline, a lot of times those colors will be indicators of what it means to them, like confidence or love or trust. And so the color is something that I trust that comes to people in a way where it just is the right color that gets them to feel good so they follow through and form their goals. So that's something that I've taken thousands upon thousands of people through on stage as well as online so they can achieve more of what they want and ultimately feel better.
Mhm. And so for the people listening, I highly encourage them to go to your website, waynelee.com. And you've got a 3.5 minute video on there of you on stage. And when you watch that video, well, I watched it and then I had the bio that you gave me, and I'm thinking, they're very different. You don't describe yourself because I've been gobsmacked. I've watched that video 3 or 4 times now, and Wayne is like an amazing stage hypnotist. Where, and I watched a different one you had yesterday. I think it was on YouTube, and you had, like a dozen or more people on the stage, and they were like absolutely all passed out, leaning on each other's shoulders, like, just completely out. And then you've told them that we've got the symphony orchestra tryouts, and you've snapped them. What I'm curious here, I get it that you got them into these like incredibly excited states, like that they were air guitaring and piano and clarinet and violin, and and you're saying like the person next to you is doing better, speed it up, come on, and they're going hard, like that must have been their heart rate would have doubled, like, and then you
Yeah.
just come up, what? Now, this could be a trade secret. And if you don't tell me, that's fine. I'm just curious as why I'm asking. When you come up behind, and they're going hell for leather, you come up
Yeah.
behind two of them, and it's like you whisper something in their ear, and they just, boom, they're out. They've snapped back to sleep. I'm like, can you share, or is that a trade secret, like what you've done
Oh, no, I
there?
could share for sure. It's very simple. I just will tell them to sleep.
In that incredible excited state,
Yeah.
just say
Yeah.
sleep. And is it how you say it? Is it like
I
what's
think
it?
it's one, I'm physically maybe touching their shoulders so they
Yes.
know I'm there. And then I'll give them a little maybe movement or jerk and I'll say sleep. And that activates them to go into that state of letting go.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
It
just the transformation's phenomenal.
it's actually still fascinating to this day, Doug, like in regards to me being on stage, seeing people going to the state. And I'll never forget when I had seen it years ago. I was so curious about what it was because I was kind of a disbeliever, like seeing these people getting hypnotized in a nightclub. And then I'm looking over at my girlfriend who's right beside me in the audience, and she's doing everything that the people on stage are doing. So she got hypnotized right beside me. My mind is blown. I'm like, that was the door that opened it. And that was really the journey that led me into where I'm at. Very blessed to do this. And what I've realized is that the one thing that stops everyone in some form or another is fear. And, I coach executives and they are high performers, very successful business owners. And there's no difference in what stops them than what stops somebody else. It may be just coming up in some area of their life that is different than somebody else's. But it's a fear of rejection, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of, these things that we boil down to really not enough or not being loved. And I know that sounds simple, but when you boil it down, a lot of people can narrow it down to those needs or those fears. And when you tell somebody on stage, you know, or let me back up. If I ask somebody, are you going to dance up here? And they're like, no way. Like, why wouldn't somebody dance up there?
Yeah.
And I'll come
I
back
can
to
answer
the
that one, mate, because
yeah, yeah.
that is one of the I have had that many dancing lessons in my life, and they just don't work on me. So I
But
would be the
let me
classic to get up on your stage, I can tell
right,
you.
right. And when you take that and you take the judgment out of their head, the over analysis, what if somebody did judge somebody as a terrible dancer anyhow?
Tell them
But
to
the
F
fact that
off.
they went and did
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
who's in a state of freedom? Who's in a state of power?
exactly.
And so if we put too much weight on what other people think in these small things that hold us back, they'll hold us back for a lifetime. And they do
Yep.
for a lot of people. So in a hypnotic state, which is really just letting go of the analytical or critical faculty and allowing yourself to tap into unlimited potential, unlimited resources, super creative, because I believe it's all there. I have a little baseline. I called it a code of transformation, which is that you're already whole, complete, and perfect. And when you start there, then you're on fire in the sense of creating from a place of want, a place of desire, not lack or feeling a hole needs to be filled. Don't get me wrong, you're going to go through the whole gamut of emotions, but you start off in a base of what is now believing that you're already whole, complete, and perfect. That means you're enough. And having that belief, you can go out and do anything. And you'll mess up. And part of it, of the success, is big failures for sure, and small failures, but you learn. Ask any hyper successful person that. When people are in that state, they relax their mind and their body and they're open to trust and accept a new suggestion uncritically. So if I said to somebody, you're going to dance, and somebody's like, no way, because they've got their guard up, as soon as they let that guard down and they relax, they're in a state of hypnosis. And when I say, when you hear the next piece of music, you have this uncontrollable urge and desire to dance. You're an amazing dancer and you are going to be safe and you're going to be on the stage dancing as if you're an amazing dancer. And so they open their eyes. I'm like, are you going to dance up here? No, 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 no. They hear the music and in an instant they stand up and they are the greatest, or they're acting as if they're the greatest. I'm not saying that they are. And they start doing their thing. What's the difference? What got them to activate themselves into that state? Well, the trigger was the music. That's the conditioned response to get them there. The suggestion was the new belief that when I hear that piece of music, I'm a great dancer.
Mm.
And you look at how that translates into life. What if I told somebody in the morning that they're going to have the most awesome day? They're going to handle every challenge. They're going to feel wealthy. They're going to be absolutely loving. They're going to give more love. They're going to be kind. And then because I told them that, they went out and they did that.
Also, I did wonder there too, if someone was already a very good dancer and you got them on the stage. And so for them, it's like oh, whatever, they're used to performing in front of people. Are
Yeah.
they going to be as enthusiastic doing that as someone like me who's just got these ridiculous fears of what people would think, and that I think, I tell myself I don't have rhythm, I don't have whatever you need to dance. Who's going to be the most enthusiastic, me or the person who's already good at it?
I think both. I think because the suggestion is going to bring out the best in both of you, somebody that's a great dancer will maybe amplify it or just be at their best. Or maybe they thought, well, I'm not going to dance right now. And then boom, they're motivated. So it hits that motivation trigger to get them to dance, regardless, if somebody's not the best dancer, somebody is, they're still I'm going to give that suggestion and I'm going to give it with enthusiasm, which will then carry into how they act.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
And do you ever get people on the stage who just are not susceptible to it? They've either volunteered to go up or their family or friends have forced them on the stage, and they just don't get into those states.
Yes,
Are they
for
able to
sure.
resist?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Like it's a cooperation. So when I'm doing my monologue and I'm introducing this to people, I say, there's two things I need. One, you have to want to do this. And two, you have to focus. You have to pay attention. So really, I'm getting them on my side and I'm educating people too, which is really a big part of what I do is educating people that hypnosis isn't sleep. And even though you've watched videos and you'd seen that it looks like they're completely out,
Mm.
they're not out. They're highly, highly relaxed, deeply relaxed, and they still hear me at all times.
Because they're
In
laying
that,
all over strangers. Like there's people like shoulder to shoulder, and they obviously people from the audience they don't know, and they're
yeah,
completely like comatose, probably dribbling on the other person's shoulder. It looks like that's how out they look. Yeah,
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is that, and I say it on stage, and it's a soundbite. I'll say, a lot of times people think people are sleeping. They're not. The best way I can describe it is that when people get hypnotized, you're still aware, you just don't care.
Wow.
And so you've let go of the critical negative judgment. and you unconditionally accept suggestions, which at its base is a very freeing feeling, mainly because people are so much in conflict with their thoughts, their beliefs, and what they want. I can't do
Mm.
this. I never have enough time. One of the greatest parts of, I think, the intuitive process is knowing that our feeling state, how we feel, is always guiding us, letting us know that we're aligned to who we truly are, our true core self, or not. And the emotional roller coaster, and you hear a lot about emotional intelligence, emotional awareness. And so I really believe that our emotions are our greatest guidance when we listen carefully.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's, the word emotion, energy, in motion. So there's energy moving and yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. You go back to Einstein, everything's energy and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
And so men with intuition, any thought, like it's traditionally been, we've been told, I guess, that it's a women's world. What's your thoughts on men developing their intuition? Possible, beneficial, impossible?
For sure. I think first of all, without a doubt, like possible, important, yes. And I think that the definition of intuition, there should be a conversation about what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know, you're somebody that focuses a lot on intuition. So from your perspective, like what's intuition to you? Like, what would you describe it as?
As most of my guests say, great question. um, okay, and for me, and it is very, and I never expect anyone to believe my version of it. And there's as many different versions of it as there are people. My version is there are invisible, benevolent forces out there who love us and who have our bests, at heart. And they're constantly trying to get messages to us, whatever way they can, to help
Mm,
guide us, lead us. And I even to the extreme, and some people will roll their eyes at this extra bit. I actually believe I believe that when we are no longer in this body, we will still live on. That's my belief there. But I also believe that we are actually, when not in this body, so powerful that it's not possible to send all of who we are into this body because I think it would burn it up. And I
mm,
believe that some of those benevolent forces that love us and are trying to help us is potentially us. So I don't believe that we are solely the one helping us, but I believe that because you hear people say, go back to when you were 5 years old and sit and have a conversation with yourself. You're now 60 years old, sit next to your 5-year-old self and comfort you. It's like, well, maybe our 75,000-year-old self's back comforting this 61-year-old Doug. And it's a bit of a bizarre way to look at it, but I, this is why I like talking to people about it because I get so many different versions of it. And your
yeah.
version of it could be radically different to that and have no relation to it. But I was yesterday, like I say, I was teaching a class. One of the guys in that was, I think he was my main contact there. He hopped up and he was a bit older than me, and he said something about, you got to go with your gut feel sometimes on these things. And I was a bit surprised. I was like, because the organization he was working for was definitely not into that sort of stuff. They were very, it was a government organization, and they're very, yeah, steak on the plate, basic sort of people. And he was talking about that, and I was a bit surprised that got to go if you're not feeling good about it, just don't do it. Back off. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's my basic version of it. How about yours?
Yeah, I think there's a knowingness within us that is based on my belief, the fact that we're one, that we're all connected, and that it's even beyond. At a very early age, and I'll come back to the definition. I was enthralled with magic, and I'd seen a fellow in the 70s from Edmonton area here have a magic show, and I was just always like enamored with magic. And at the end, he'd always say, "It's magic." And I didn't realize how powerful that would influence me to create a philosophy based on that, calling it life is magic. And I think a part of our intuition is a state of wonder, a state of absolute curiosity that there is unlimited possibilities. We're unlimited. And as soon as we know it all, we've closed the door to that beautiful balance of certainty and uncertainty. And through the imagination and through our power of choice, through our power of awareness, through power of motivation, what drives us, and the ability to set goals, I believe that's all the intuitive 5 points that we live by. So I like to call it magic because I love magic. And
Yeah,
there's also an acronym intuitively. I'm going to tell you this right now because it's not one of the ones that I speak about a whole lot. But MAGIC is also a question. It's a state of wonder that is a question of maybe all God is creation.
I'm just writing this down. Maybe all God is creation. Okay, I got that.
Yeah. So it's an
Excellent.
interesting play on words in terms of we have this amazing ability to create something out of nothing, turn the invisible into the visible. And we are it. And we are all so connected that we can forget about that. We can ignore that. And I really believe life is about remembering who we are.
Absolutely.
And so remembering is intuition,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
plain and
I,
simple.
and that just fits perfectly because I can just see those in my invisible benevolent forces trying to help me remember all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
great book, and I think I have it. I can share it. I have tons of books behind me all over, and I know books have always been like a guidepost of going into, and continually grab these books, or I'll buy numerous copies over the years because I'm just drawn to these. Like intuitively, I'm in a bookstore and I have to have them. I read it. It's my gut. So I
Mm.
believe all those, and going on a little ta tangent. I know super logical, highly scientific people that you would think, oh, that comes from them. They'll say that statement, trust your gut, make those decisions on the gut level. And they may not define it as maybe we're defining it, yet that's intuition, right? It's that sense
Mm.
of knowing. So, but one of the books, and I want to just grab it.
Sure.
And
Okay.
the book
Okay.
is really cool. I had it given to me by a mentor, and it's called In Search of the Invisible Forces.
Okay. I'm just writing that down.
Yeah.
In
And
search of
intuitively, I'm sharing
good.
it. Yeah. And George Adair is the author. And you know how you have some of these books, I know I do, where I just keep going back and
Yeah.
highlight and then I write and then I note, put notes in there. And this is one of those books, The Hidden Cause of Success and Failure. And I
Okay.
love it because there's no real mention of like God and religious aspects. And don't get me wrong, open to all of that. Yet I'm really big on oneness,
Yep.
that we're all connected and that we all
Absolutely.
have these beautiful differences and that university of diversity is what makes us who we are.
Mm. Yep. Awesome. So he's George Adair, Adair, is it?
There's two D's in it.
Double D.
Add
Okay.
air. It's funny how it's spelled. I'm not
Yep.
sure if he's changed it, but add air. Yeah. George
Yeah.
add air.
No worries. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. So unrelated to what we've just been talking about, but I've been
Hmm.
jotting some notes down while we've been talking. So for those listening, you've got to go to waynelee.com and watch this 3.5 minute video of him on stage. It's just, I've been enthralled. I've watched it that many times, but I'm curious. So you said initially you were skeptical of this. Your girlfriend in a nightclub got hypnotized while she's beside you in the audience, and you're like, wow, this works. So how do you go from that point to where you are now? And you like, how do you go to hypnosis school and you get some like, people like you get a dozen volunteers to come up and there's no audience and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether you hypnotize. Like, how do you get the guts to like go, all right, you six people get over here, I'm gonna hypnotize you. Like, where's what is the first, second, third step into starting that?
Well, and just have to I just have to I smile because I still go back to that in regards to how it all started. So I'm going to go there. There's one question I think that we got so excited about other things that went off on a tangent. Just wanted to say address like you know how you talked about getting like people coming up to get hypnotized and do
Hmm.
they all get hypnotized or do some people go back? So the answer is that two-thirds usually stay up, and I'm using that in general terms, and about a third will go back, depending on who the audience is. So yes, people will, in that time given, need more time. So if it doesn't work for them, not everybody gets hypnotized at that point, but it doesn't mean that they can't be hypnotized. It means that maybe they needed more time, or maybe they were trying too hard. They needed to let go of the fact they thought they were going to sleep. So there's a lot of variables. I will say, and this is really fascinating, there's about 12 to 15% of the population that for whatever reason, and you can ask an expert over here, an expert over here, and they're going to give you two different answers, is there's 12 to 15% of the population that's highly suggestible, that they can get into a hypnosis show and I can say sleep and they're out like a light. And it was just that time where I took my girlfriend to the show. She was one of those people. So
Yeah.
that's what really fascinated me. And as I was going through university, becoming a school teacher, I was like mesmerized by seeing what I had seen. I'd done magic. I was already wrestling and learned a lot of visualization and guided imagery. Was really a big believer in the power of the mind, and the mindset is going to produce your skill set, and those are going to produce the results. So I it became an obsession, a healthy obsession back in the 90s of what's this all about? So there wasn't the internet really at the time that, you know, what we can do now. We can access anything really. So I reached out to the best hypnotists in the world. I said, "Who, if I'm going to learn something, I better learn from the best." So I called all these hypnotists, a number of these hypnotists. They were just so gracious. They gave me their time over the phone. I'd buy their materials. I would study it. And then there was a number of these hypnotists that were coming through the area doing shows. And I would go out to all the shows. I would study what they were doing. I'd interview them after. And there's a saying, and the saying goes like this: if you want to do something bad enough, you'll find a way.
Yeah.
I realized that that was me. And so it was, you know, reading books, watching videos, and then eventually taking courses. But I'll never forget, I was doing childcare work and I hadn't hypnotized anybody at the time in terms of doing a show, but I asked the manager there, I said, could I do some relaxation and hypnosis techniques with the kids? And the manager said, yeah, you can do that. And I'll never forget, three kids got hypnotized. These were adolescents. And I can tell you the story now because I no longer work there, obviously. They went so deep into this, I had to kind of pinch myself going, this is real. I had one of the kids because it was way back in the 90s, so Michael Jackson was really big. I had him do a rendition to Beat It.
Wow.
To this day, I don't think I've seen anybody do a better version of Beat It than that kid. And so I'm like, this is real. How could somebody just act like that, right? They are so good. They're doing it very natural. And so that was the door that opened to have me want to hypnotize anybody that I came in contact with to practice. So I'd be at a wedding and I'd say, "Hey, do you guys want to get hypnotized?" And they must have thought I was crazy. But I would do these small parties. I would, you know, set up these opportunities where I would just ask people to get hypnotized and then do these small shows, emulating what these other hypnotists were doing. And then before I knew it, I was doing it. And it really was that underlying philosophy is that you got to start.
Yeah.
And it is the stage time that takes you to the next level. And so I could have theorized about it to this day and not had started, but starting allowed me to get really good and then take courses and then and never stopped learning. Like I was always fascinated with it. And I was to the point where I was like, I want to do a bigger public show. And so I'll never forget, it was at a place in Edmonton here called the Sidetrack Cafe. And they brought in a lot of really cool bands and high profile bands. But on Sunday nights, they had this variety, like kind of like an open mic night. And they would have great musicians. They'd have variety entertainers. So I approached the fellow there and I still remember talking to Gary, who was booking all the entertainment, and I said, "I'm a hypnotist." And he said, "What's your name?" And at the time, like my full name is Wayne Lee Diddick, and I knew that Diddick is a harder name to say, and it's not the great stage name that I wanted. And so I just said, "Well, I'm Wayne Lee the hypnotist." It just came out of me like Wayne Lee, and that stuck. And I said, "I'm going to do a hypnosis show here." And not that can I do a hypnosis, but I'm going to do. I acted very confident. I was
You were
probably
hypnotizing him.
yes, and I was hypnotizing myself. That's the first person that needs to be hypnotized. So I was practicing what I was preaching, right, in terms of how this all works. So I'll never forget. I got the gig there to do a show there, obviously not getting paid for it, but having the opportunity to do it. And I started out with some magic, and the adult audience, I didn't get much of a response. They were probably thinking this is kids magic, and it probably was more along the lines of kids magic. So I took a break. I came back after the intermission, and we started the hypnosis show. And when I called people up, I still have that video. And it's hard for me to watch it because I was so raw, so unpolished, so abrupt. But man, I was enthusiastic. I had
Yep.
passion. And I got like 20 some people up, not even like not everybody was all seated, and I did my hypnosis. And out of that, maybe half got hypnotized, but there were so many people up there that it was wild and crazy. And I'll never forget that feeling of entertaining and seeing people smile and the power of just putting on this show that I said to myself, I want to do this. And it wasn't, I want to do this. It was like, I can see I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Mm.
There was a turning point there. And I know a lot of people, looked at me going, well, you're just starting out, like my mom and very supportive people, but they're obviously looking out for me going, well, if this doesn't work out, you can always, do your teaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I couldn't even see that, Doug. Like it was like, I'm going to make this work. And from that point, I do remember coming up with, hey, I love to teach. I love to see people be successful because I've studied success and I'm always curious about what makes people succeed. And then I want to make people laugh because laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
So that's where that foundation of the three E's. I want to entertain, educate, and empower people.
Yeah. And
And
it's
so
funny.
that point, that turning point was a springboard for me to teach for another year, year and a half. And it gave me the opportunity to do shows at nightclubs at night while I was teaching during the day. And as I went through a full year of teaching, my exit out was to get as many shows booked as I could. And down the road, obviously, do it full time, which I ended up doing. And that was 30 years ago.
And surprisingly, while you were just towards the end of you telling me that, I just had this memory back to the very beginning of our conversation. You're there making everybody happy, entertaining, and helping people learn how to improve their lives and have a better outlook on life. And all of those things would help take away the pain of your parents' separation. Like it's
Yeah.
just like because you didn't want other people to go through that. And so it's you're out now changing the world, trying to, yeah. And I've had similar things from my childhood with my
Mm.
parents and particularly with my dad. That's I have been the spark because over 35 years ago, I heard the saying, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks when I heard it
Yeah.
because it was like, that's my dad. That's the life he's living. And that's the life he lived the whole life I knew him.
Mm.
Um, and I didn't want that for him. I didn't want it for me. When I used to buy him books in the last 10 years of his life, because he would sit and read a lot, um, I'd be, I knew the kind of books he liked, but I was always trying to buy a book like that was a self-help book as well, but had a similar story to it. And
Yeah.
sometimes he'd go, yeah, I enjoyed that one. Other times he'd hand it back to me. He'd go, I read the first 10 pages and I can't. He was never gracious enough to he was gracious, he'd accepted it, but I think he was just thinking because he was born in the Depression era, like he didn't waste things. So it was like he's just letting me know there's no help here. Look, I can't read it. I'm giving it back to you so you can read it, or you can
Yeah.
give it to someone else who can read it,
Yeah.
um,
Because that's the way he
yeah,
lived.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Yeah,
Yeah, no,
interesting.
I really believe that these points of our life that can be looked at as very negative are gifts,
Mm, yeah, yeah. And
and
how
those
many
gifts
more,
are
yeah, how many more lives we go on to help and improve because there was a situation that was viewed unfavorably or as painful or whatever, and then we go out and help. And like, you've in the bio there, you've been to over 6,000 different organizations with, hypnosis and training and coaching and things like that. So yeah, that pain that you experienced from that point on, you're now being a bright shining light into the world, which is awesome.
yeah, no, it's a good feeling, and um, I think I read somewhere today too that it's National Kindness Day.
Wow. Yeah.
And, and I think that if there's one thing that we can do to add to make people feel better or the world a better place, is to be kind. And it's very simple to do. And I think that there's that expression that hurt people. And so when you spread the kindness, I really believe there's an impact for sure.
Yeah, I lost where I was going there. But I know the next question I wanted to talk to you about. In somewhere I read when COVID hit, and you're doing stage shows, and it's all in person, da 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 da, and things changed for you. I'm just curious, was intuition helpful there for you to help you switch gears and change directions or whatever?
For sure. Yeah, I think that also intuition of just listening to what path my wife and I take to move forward, to ask questions. I think questions are very much tied into intuition in terms of being able to uncover, being able to search and to listen. And one of the questions we asked was, what is next? And from a state of just listening and being softening the heart and not like um, we trusted. And I think that's also that big part of intuition. So it was very important, as well as some solid beliefs that things are going to work out. We can handle this. And who knows, maybe some of the greatest things will come about this. And maybe we can serve a lot of people because a lot of people are hurting out there. So those types of sound bites, those questions came from hitting COVID head on. And it was remarkable because I could tell you, oh, we knew exactly how we were going to handle it. But the biggest part of it is that we didn't. That we had to trust. We had to be open. And yet I could say that deep core feeling that everything was going to be okay was that intuition.
Mm.
And moving forward, we ended up connecting with the people we needed to learn from to do an online course, to creating a coaching course, to creating my own coaching model, the Transform Freedom model. There was things that came out because not because of, oh, we had this inspirational, it was because of necessity. It's because we needed to, and we just did it. And we were having 8 hours a day. My wife was figuring out how to do online stuff. And it gave me an opportunity to flush out so much of the things that I love to educate people on, but I still hadn't gotten it out to the world. So during that time period, we went online and we reached a lot of people, helping them through a 21-day subconscious reset challenge that led people into a group coaching, that then led people into individual coaching, that led people into a 90-day goal achievement program, which wasn't created before COVID. And so it really allowed us to be of service, to create lots of value. And I'll tell you a really interesting synchronicity, because I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason in the sense that the people, places, things, events, opportunities come into your life to even create more and expansive opportunities. And so when we were going through this, I'm creating this coaching model and this group coaching, and I had a fellow that was a client from way back in 2010, 2011, and he's a very successful real estate developer. But we just kept in touch through online social media, and he was going through some health challenges. So perfect timing where I'm no longer doing live events. He's going through what he's going through, and he reached out to me and he says, "Wayne, could you coach me one-on-one?" I'm like, "Of course, I've got time. I'd love to do that." We went online, and as we started to work together, I was putting together my group coaching program and my individual group program, and he had hired me to do like 6 sessions. And in the midst of it, he says, "How's your coaching program going?" And I said, "Well, really good. I'm excited about it. I'm doing a group coaching program, and a few people are interested in coaching one-on-one, and it's a good way for me to get out all the things that I know I'm of value and I can make an impact." And he says, "Well, what would you charge for that?" And I gave him a value that I had paid coaching for in terms of my mentors. And he goes, and I thought he was going to say, "Oh, that's too much." His statement was like, "Oh, wait, Wayne, that's way too little." And I says, "Well, what would you charge?" And he quadrupled the amount of what I would charge. And then he said, "And sign me up for your first customer."
Wow.
So it was unbelievable in terms of how this angel, I would call him our angel, came into our life to supplement what we didn't have in terms of live events. And
Mm,
it was a pity. He says, "Wayne, I am going through such a time that your stuff works so well that trust me, I should be paying you even more." And so through that whole year, and then a year and a half after that, like I mean a half year after that, um, I coached him plus creating all the other programs. But did I know that was going to happen? I had no idea. And that day that happened, my wife, her background is in speech pathology. She was thinking about going back to work because we had no work. We still had to build
mm,
what we needed to build and create the revenue. And she went to take our son to get a COVID test that day. And it was at a big kind of gathering place. And all these speech pathologists were testers. So that's what they were put to work. And so she's like, "Oh my goodness." Like she's thinking, "I don't want to do this," but she has to do it. So she comes home that day in the middle of the afternoon. And there I am with a glass of wine, drinking, smiling. And she's pissed. She's looking at me going, she's in tears pretty much. She goes, "I just went there and this is what I'd have to do." And she goes, "What the heck are you drinking wine?" So I told her about Dominic, who's our client, and we just, both teared up because it was like exactly what needed to come in our life at that point in time,
yeah. Yeah.
and we trusted. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, beautiful things have unfolded since then, obviously. But that was one example of trusting ourselves, asking questions that I really believe we listen to, and moving forward, trusting our gut.
Could you imagine at the end of 2022 if you went back and you documented all of the positive things that came from the whole COVID thing worldwide, that this would happen, that would happen in your business, you would now be in 2 years' time, so this is like a month before COVID started. In 2 years' time, you personally, Wayne, will be doing this. Your wife will be doing that. Your neighbor across the street will be doing this and that and the other. And all these other people will be doing this. This will be offered. All these people will be working from home, and and their lifestyle will be better, and they see their kids more. And you just took all the positives out of it, and you said, "This is what," and you would just go, "Bullshit. That cannot happen." We would just go, "Great thought, Doug. You're in fairyland, like la la la, like keep drinking whatever you've been drinking because hope you're enjoying it." But if we did sort of go, "Okay, yeah, that's wonderful," and then, like it will happen, just have faith. Just keep your eyes on the prize. Like, just
Yeah.
forget about all the other stuff in between. Will other things happen as well? Yes. What will they be? We won't talk about what they'll be, but just, but all this stuff will come out of it. Like, it's been, well, world changing, like understatement, obviously, but it's been amazingly good. There's been so many good things come out of it. Was it enjoyable at the time? No. Was there adversity? Was there uncertainty? I mean, that's the only certain thing in our lives. There will be uncertainty, and
Yeah.
but
Embrace it.
that inner gut knowing, that inner gut feeling, and that trust that it'll work out. It always works out. It always does. If you go back through history, yeah, bad stuff happens, but it works out. The world doesn't end, like it keeps going. Yeah,
And I think a good question is, how do you want to live it?
mm,
And the interesting thing, and while you were saying this, Doug, like a few things popped in my mind is that first of all, like with even the mega, like people focus in on that, get that feeling, and then let go of how it's going to happen. I'm coaching one person right now, and he's so dialed in, he's so focused, but he's also so in control, or his perceptions, I got to be in control of how this all happens, that it's part of what stops him from even playing a bigger game, from even inviting more in. And then when I said, "What did you just achieve in this last year?" He's like, "Holy shit." Not necessarily the way he thought he would. And that's the beautiful thing is that there's this focus that we can be focused upon what's wrong or what's good. And I know people to this day that will still be living in everything that's wrong. So no matter what goes right, their perception is that their mindset is seeing that as negative. And so no matter what times we go through, whether it's COVID, whether it's the depression, there's always two sides to the coin or many sides, depending on how you look at things. You may have heard that, in these great adversities, that's when most technologies and most businesses are born.
yeah,
And I can talk to some of my relatives, not naming names, that I can talk to them, but they see everything the other way.
yeah,
And so the beautiful thing is that we have this choice, this choice of looking at things, and we have this intuition that we can follow.
yeah. And it brings calm and peace when you trust in it, and the more you practice it, the more synchronicities that drop into place and make things like okay, and you're able to look back and go, that wasn't going that yeah, it wasn't fun, but I didn't see this other really good thing coming. And the worst stuff is the better things that happen. It's
Yeah.
equal and opposite reaction or whatever, that sort of thing. So it's if only something, if you cut your toe, well, the benefit out of that would be minor if you find the benefit. But if something, much worse happens, you lose all your income, and if you're panicked about it, you're going to think, well, that's it. Like I am going to crack this bottle of wine because it's the last one I'll ever be able to afford. In a month, the bank will come and take our home and our cars, and we'll have nothing. We'll be sleeping on the street. Where's the shadiest tree we can live under? You could have those thoughts, or you've got inner knowing, and you just because you've trusted before, and for me, I know there's invisible benevolent forces who love us and have much more power, understanding, knowledge. It's just like us guiding. If there's an ant on the ground and we've put a pile of food over here somewhere, but it's heading the other way, and we keep putting little roadblocks in its way to make it go back the other way towards the food we just put there for it, but it can't see it, and it's constantly, we're trying to be benevolent. We're trying to push it back to the food, like we sense and know it's hungry, and we finally get it back there, and it's exhausted because we've been stopping it heading the wrong way constantly, and it's bashing up against all the little roadblocks we put in. We finally, shepherd it back to the food, and then it's like, oh, oh, so out of that great adversity, it had it, but it just wouldn't take the first roadblock seriously and head the opposite direction and
Yeah.
get it easier.
Needs,
So yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, so for me, women tend to follow these things a bit easier, better than men. So that's why I've left it to them, and that's why I left it to the women to help themselves develop these
yeah.
things because I think men for the longest time, but I am definitely in the last couple of years noticing so many more men being open to these conversations. And like I say, the
Yeah.
guy yesterday that he was instructing some of the staff in the place about, trusting their gut and to back off if you get into a tight situation with this or that or the other, just back off, don't pursue it because you or someone could get hurt. And I was like, wow, this guy was 67 years old. Like he told me that. And I'm thinking, wow, like usually it'd be quite old school. But yeah, there's more and more men starting to recognize there's this, and he even used the word sixth sense. It's there.
Mm.
And when you feel it, you got to follow it. And yeah, which makes me happy that that word's getting out and men will
Yeah.
stop living lives of quiet desperation, or they'll be
Right.
able to make one better choice a day, and
Yeah.
just and make everyone around them's lives better. So that was
Yeah.
another motivator for me because at school, like I mentioned earlier, I was always the youngest, and I hit puberty late, and so I got all these testosterone boys around me who, just got off with the fairies, not being very polite, being grumpy. And then I became a professional firefighter at 19. And there was a lot of older guys there who were sort of grumpy and etc. too. And they weren't there was a lot of nice guys there, but there was a handful of guys who weren't nice to be around because they were living lives of quiet desperation. And I just figured if these guys were just making better choices, they'd enjoy their
Mm.
life more and they'd be nicer to everybody, including me. So
Mhm.
if they're nicer to me, they'll be nicer to everyone else. So off I went with that little target and goal, and it's where I am
Cool.
now. Yeah.
Something that comes up for me too, because I know we're all driven by our experiences. And again, going back to magic, years ago, I wrote a book called Life's Magical Meanings because I think going through school, I didn't do that well in English. I was fascinated by words, like
Join the
how
club.
synchronistic that I became a hypnotist. And interesting, I take words and I create acronyms out of them. Just a fascination, right? Like the word, say, focus is fixed, ongoing concentration, unlimited success. So it would just come to me. And I realized that when you have magical meanings in life, and if you break down meanings, they're just beliefs about what things mean to you. And you have ones that support you, you create more magical moments. And I really believe that life is about magical moments. We could have COVID, and yet at the same time, somebody can live with a lot of these magical moments, like a smile, saying hello, helping somebody, being grateful, having a success, celebrating. And the more magical moments that we have, the simplicity is that we enjoy life more.
Mm.
And it becomes simplistic, more simplistic, and we complicate it with our baggage or the garbage that we've picked up over the years. But the beautiful thing is that there's always that intelligence, that guidance, the feeling state that lets us know that, what am I thinking? Who am I without that thought? I can just feel better. I can just live in the moment. And so, like going back, doubling down on that, it's always a choice. It's always awakening up to who we really are and remembering.
Yeah. And it is constantly a choice because either of us could go to the doctor next week for a checkup and they could find something that may or may not be there, but they may interpret it that something's there. And they might give you some news that, Wayne or Doug, this we think this is going on in your body and you need this, and how you then respond from there could send you into a downward spiral to end your life in the next 2 years through emotion. Or you could go, you know what, I'm just not feeling that, like it's not part of me, and you go and get a second opinion and the second doctor's like, I don't see that your body has that at all. And then you think, we'll go for a third opinion. And the third doctor goes, you don't have that at all. So, I mean, the first doctor, there just might have been a typo, or, when the test results had the wrong name on it or something, like, and they thought you had it and you actually didn't. It was someone else's test results or something. And
Yeah,
that could send you into a downward spiral, like, and it would be false information,
right.
accidentally. And yeah, so that inner knowing, it's like, yeah, I think I'm going to stay how I am on this one. I'm going to stay pretty positive. I'll get someone else to check this out and get their opinion. But yeah,
Yeah.
either way, you could go up or down depending on and perception there, mindset, that sort of thing. So yeah,
Yeah. Life is perception for sure.
yeah, absolutely. So we've been going for a bit over an hour now. We've talked about some great stuff. Is there, before we wind up, in the show notes, there's going to be your contact details, and I strongly encourage people to go in and if nothing more, be entertained for 3 or 4 minutes watching this awesome video that he's got on his website at waynelee.com. So is there anything we haven't talked about, Wayne, that you'd like to bring up? Because we've still got a little bit of time. Or if you think we've hit the high notes?
I think we hit a lot of what we wanted to. And, if there's one thing that is surfacing right now, it's just the power of gratitude, the power of being grateful, power of, being in that state where we can lose thought or lose track of that in terms of just the decision to being grateful. Like, oh my goodness, am I ever blessed? Am I ever thankful that right here, right now, all the things around me, I'm grateful for. Um, yeah, just I think that's one of the most powerful things that open the door for more is
Yeah.
being in a state of gratitude. And all of the peak performers that I've studied, listening to their interviews, studying them, interviewing them, there's this gratefulness. And I know we come from a hockey city here in Edmonton, the good old Oilers, and they're not doing too well right now, but they won their last game. And I got to tell you, like those guys, they weren't in a victim mode, they were in a victor mode. And if there's one thing I'll end with, and I think this is what the gratitude has led me to, is before I think we have access to that deep knowing, that gut feeling that it's about taking personal responsibility. It's the foundation of creation, it's the foundation of success, it's the foundation of serving others. And it's just to be so doubled down. I call it the victory vibration. No matter what happens to you, you're a victor, that you here, you're existing. You are so blessed that you're here to create. Because when we're in victim mode, it doesn't serve anyone other than helping us wake up to our victor mode, that we have a choice to everything that happens, it happens. We have a responsibility to respond and to make the most out of it.
Yeah. And responding's pretty important rather than reacting. It usually,
Yeah.
because response is usually pre-planned, as this is how I'm going to handle these things. Yeah.
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 Like blaming and complaining, those cover up the intuitive part of who we really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so yeah, taking responsibility, and you're able to be grateful because the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
You've got to get up in the morning and do this, that, and the other to make the day flow better. When uh, skip some of those things, the day doesn't go maybe as well as it could have, or etc. Yeah, yeah,
So
I
that's
love.
what it was. That's the last bit, is that the gratitude led into absolute personal responsibility.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, and it all ties for me into intuition quite well. And yeah, I love it. I've loved our conversation.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
It's yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of, as I usually say, a lot of gold nuggets for the men to dig through and listen, go through again. And I'm sure if you listen to it and then in a month or a year you listen to it again, there'd be something
Different.
different in there for sure. That depending on their state of mind or what's going on in their life at the time, there'd be a different thing they would hear. Because I know so many times I've gone back and read books or listened to interviews, and you're like, oh, I never saw or heard that last time, and
Yeah.
it's just what I need this time. Yeah, there's multi layers to everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. All right.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so very much for having me. And it's great to share my message and my story. And I hope a lot of people get a whole lot out of it listening. And yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, definitely worth hearing. Thanks, Wayne.
You're very welcome.
Well, we're at the end of another thought provoking episode. Remember to subscribe so you'll be alerted to new episodes. I want to say thank you to the men who are joining me on this journey of intuitive development. I truly hope our time together has expanded your reality and reinforced trust in your ever reliable gut feeling. Embrace your intuition, it will not lead you astray. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and trust your gut.